ready to talk about some sales, pricing, packages, why selling packages is the right approach. And this is important for you and for your prospects as you're talking with them. So we're going to cover quite a bit of information. For some of you who've seen the pricing and packages video, there'll be some similar content here with a few additional items as well. Now, again, if you have any questions, please post them. The questions can pertain to the topic at hand or just general questions that you have about all things digital. So we're going to talk about packages. We're going to talk about what a standard package looks like or set of packages, some industry-specific packages we've compiled, and also quickly review how consistent effort will help you be more successful. You don't have to go out there and conquer the world today, but slow and steady will win the race. So I'm going to start with some foundational stuff. I've had a number of conversations lately with folks, publishers, who are struggling to communicate some of their value to local businesses. And I don't mean just digital, I mean print or whatever. And I'm a big fan of this framework of attention, interest, desire, and action, also known as the AIDA model. And so I'm going to quickly talk about how this applies to your business. So first and foremost, you can't sell something to someone who doesn't know you exist, right? So television commercials are a great way to introduce new products. There's just fundamental awareness. It's why it's so valuable to have a Super Bowl ad. So many people get to see it. So the first step is getting people to be aware that you exist. Now, if you're an established business, like a local restaurant that's been there for years, or an auto dealership, or Coke or Pepsi, people know that you're there. But the next is interest. Okay, I know that it exists, but am I interested in that product, that service, and do I care? From there, you're talking about desire. Okay, I'm interested, and now I need a new car. Where am I going to go to solve this problem? And that's what it's about, is demonstrating that you can solve a need or a want that someone has. And then finally, you get someone to take action. Sometimes that means pick up the phone. Sometimes that means come into the store. Sometimes that means go to a website. It varies by industry, but the idea is you literally need to move people through this. Now, different mediums and different types of campaigns have different effectiveness at different levels. So Google is fantastic at driving action. If someone says, I want to rank higher on Google, that's great at driving action, but it has no impact on generating interest or attention and really even desire. Google answers questions. Where can I get my haircut? But first you have to want to get your haircut. And so other medium and other media do a much better job higher in the funnel. So think about this as you think about what your print product, what your web product, what your whatever product does. Where is this addressing? Very few things actually serve all of these areas at the exact same time. So you need to put them together in the right ways. Now, what that means is that success is about solving problems, not selling ads. And you've probably seen this before because it's so important and so true. So we're going to talk about how you can really solve these problems and help people make more money. So I'm also going to talk about reach and frequency. We have a number of quarterly magazines that we work with, and their reach is fantastic. The people who see their message is fantastic. Their frequency, however, is 4 times a year. And so a lot of what digital does there is it increases that frequency. If you're a weekly publication or online only, you have many more touch points, but to increase the frequency is still a good thing. So if somebody says, well, I already reach so many people with some ad that I buy, it doesn't mean that it's not good for those people to see that ad again, for the simple reason that people are busy, they don't pay attention, they see lots of messages, and it's hard to get to top of mind. Now, top of mind is what we think of when we need something. I want you to go through a little mental exercise with me for a moment. The first thing I'm going to ask you, when I ask you what your favorite soda is, or what is the most common soda, or where you're at in the country, pop is what brand comes to mind. Just think about it, picture in your mind that can or that bottle, that logo, and you probably see something like this. Now, Coke, everyone knows who Coca-Cola is, and yet they spend hundreds of millions, maybe even billions of dollars a year on marketing. Why is that? They want to be top of mind so that when you go, man, I am thirsty. You don't say, I'm thirsty for a soda. You say, I'm thirsty for a Coke, or at least that's the hope. What about sports car? Picture in your mind a fancy car, maybe a car you'd like, or one that you've seen recently or heard about recently, and perhaps it's Porsche that comes to mind. There's other sports cars. There's Ferrari and BMW, sort of as a sports car, but also a little bit more luxury car. But different brands aspire to different ideas, and when you think about these ideas, you think about them, or so they hope. Likewise, a restaurant. Now, this is trickier because there's local restaurants, there's different kinds of restaurants, but when I think of sort of a normal restaurant, I think of Olive Garden. I suspect they're nationwide, so you've probably got one in your market. The point here is what you want to do is help your clients become top of mind responses for their respective industries. Because if I can think of who I need as a plumber or to fix my air conditioner or whatever, that saves me from going to Google, it saves me from price hunting, and it's going to help them charge a premium process. So with that, I want to switch and start talking about you, the publisher. I want you to think about your distribution strategy, or more specifically, your distribution channels. So you've got your website, you've got your Facebook page, you've got your email newsletter. These are the three legs of your distribution stool. There's other things you can grow as well: Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, Google Plus, and others. There's an asterisk by Google Plus because it's good to have that account for search purposes, even if you don't have any followers, but that's beyond the scope of today's call. So you want to really grow these three main areas: website, Facebook, and email. You also want to use them. You don't want to neglect it. You wouldn't say, oh, I print 20,000 copies in print, but I'm only going to put your ad in 8,000. Why would you do that? You give them maximum reach. There's one other thing called audience extension, and this is basically selling ads on other people's websites or on an ad network. This is optional, and it's something you can do to make money, but it's, again, beyond the scope of this call. So we're going to talk about hitting on all of those. And sometimes what this also means is giving advertisers a chance to pat themselves on the back. What I mean by that is it's hard for a business to come up with a lot of things to say on their blog, on their Facebook page, on their email newsletter, and if they're an advanced business, well, if they're not advanced, they'll probably just have a Facebook page. But what do I say? We have great donuts. How many times can I say that on my Facebook page? But if we have a blog post on the local publisher site for an event or something that's content, or maybe I sponsor a contest, I can be excited about that. Hey, super excited to be sponsoring this social promotion over at Susquehanna Life. Check it out. And so now all of a sudden, you're actually turning your advertisers into a distribution channel. They get to pat themselves on the back, and there is value to that. And so we want to make sure that we activate all of those things. Okay, so it's about audience. Your audience that you're able to reach, because, well, frankly, audience turns into customers. So let me start by talking about the limitations of a banner ad. This isn't to say banner ads are bad. It's simply to say that they are not a panacea solution for publishers, especially local. If you have billions of page views, you can make a lot of money, but you don't have that. So the first thing I want to identify is you look at your screen here, and sure, you could add a few more sidebar ads if you really wanted to, but by and large, you've got a handful of ads and ad opportunities. Now, what you see on the right, the limited supply, I'm assuming a share of voice, meaning every ad that shows up in the push-down ad will appear basically once every 4 times. You get 25% of your viewers. I'm assuming you're not going to be doing a lot of targeting at this point because most of our publishers don't have enough traffic to really justify targeting and spend the time and effort on it. In the future, that will change, but for now, as your sites are growing, you're going to be pretty much run of site. Why? Because your advertisers want to reach people geographically. Pardon me. So basically what you look at is if you have various mixes of share of voice from 25 to 33%, with the exception of the snapshot ad, which is likely many more spots because that's a lower cost sort of a value spot, you're looking at somewhere between 31 and 40 potential advertisers, and then you're sold out. Now, I'm sure everyone on this call would love to have 31 to 40 advertisers, but my point here is for those of you who have print products, you probably have way more than that in print, so you couldn't even sell an ad to all of your digital ad to all of your print advertisers. So that's one of the fundamental issues. And as you grow, you're still limited. Another is that the value of a banner ad is directly related to the amount of traffic that you have. Sure, you charge more per impression than, say, ESPN because of the geographic focus of your site, but still, it's a very mathematical thing. Add more traffic and charge more money. Mobile also very much complicates things because if you think about a mobile site, it doesn't have this many ad slots. And if you pepper in a lot of ads on a small screen, it's very much an interruption, whereas the way that we're doing it on desktop is sort of a couple ads on the screen at most, and they're spread out nicely. So you actually have fewer ads on the mobile environment. And then local stats aren't that impressive. So most of our publishers have thousands to tens of thousands of page views. Now we know that tens of thousands of page views is good, but people always hear about the millions of people who go to fill in the national site, Facebook or Google or whatever, and you're just a fraction of that. And so for some reason, people want to equate you to that, even though your audience is so much more narrow. So the stats themselves aren't that impressive. And they frankly don't add any value to you. If you have an ad on your site, how much more traffic will you get because that ad is there? Zero. There's no new content, there's no search or social benefit. The only benefit you can argue that you get from an ad, other than money, is that you can go to the next advertiser and say, hey, that guy, that gal advertised, and you should too. And you should do that. You should, show social proof, but there's not a lot of value to you beyond just getting paid. So you got to sell campaigns. So what can we sell? Okay, so you can sell banner ads and email sponsorships, ask the experts or featured events. You can sell things like social promotions and other sorts of sponsored content, and really start layering things in. And in fact, even the impact marketing suite, which reference that, how many times you talk to a business and they don't have a website, you look at their website and it is pathetic, or they frankly ask you, hey, I need a new website. Well, the impact marketing suite is a way for you to make money without having to do any work. And as you'll see again beyond the scope of this call, but people who use this technology that we're developing, if they post an event or something on their own website, it'll show up on your website, in your calendar. So there's lots of benefits to you. So there's a lot that you have to sell here. And in fact, there's more, but to avoid spending an hour on this call, I'm going to keep it to this. So how do we build a package? Well, for the purpose of this pricing, I'm going to assume a few things. The first, I'm going to assume this site has about 10,000 page views a month. Now, for many of you, that might be a lot. For some of you, it's a fraction of your audience. It's very much a reachable goal. So when we talk about our publisher concierge and the things you need to do to grow your traffic, 10,000 might be a stretch goal, but it is not something that you can't get to and can't get to fairly quickly. We're going to talk about having 1,000 email opt-ins. Now, this is your newsletter, and you probably already have a bunch of email addresses to seed it with if you don't already have a newsletter set up. So about 1,000 email addresses and about 25 to 35% of an open rate, meaning any email that you spend 250 to 350 people open it. That's a good open rate. If your open rate's lower than that, but you have more emails, sort of a wash. It's how many people will see the average email. About 1,500 Facebook fans, which is pretty common, pretty standard for local pubs. I'm going to assume that you're charging based on 12-month recurring billing, meaning set up credit card, 12-month contract. So if you are going to bill them month to month or on a shorter term, the prices will be higher, and you can see some metrics there. But pretty much what you're doing here is if you were to say a 3-month contract were 33% higher than the price I'm showing here, you're getting 12 months for the price of 8. So it's a nice way to sort of upsell people and get them to buy a little bit more. Okay, so let's start at the top of sort of your standard campaign. Enhanced digital is what I'm calling it. So for $249 a month on 12-month term, recurring billing, etc., you would give somebody a push down or a sidebar ad. These are the two most prominent ad slots on the site. Depending on the type of business, the type of ad, the real estate's a bit different. Likewise, they would get an advertorial, sponsored event of some sort, or sponsored content. You could also do what's called a quick giveaway. It's kind of like a social promotion, but it's a single post on Facebook saying, hey, reply below for your chance to win tickets, and then you could boost that on Facebook, throw a little money at it. Good exposure for you. in any case, and not as valuable to them as a actual social promotion, which has multiple posts and entries and so forth, but a nice way to do something fun. And then an email newsletter ad and a premium listing. So literally an ad on your email newsletter and an upgraded listing in your directory. So this brings you to about $250 a month. Again, if you've got sort of half the stats that I just showed above on our assumption, then sort of cut the price in half. But in fact, it's not even in half. It's reduced, but not in half, because advertorials and featured events and so forth, those have long-term value since they're on your site indefinitely. At a lower level down, you'll give them a less prominent ad, let's say an inline ad or a snapshot ad. Again, you can have advertorials, featured event, and quick giveaways. These are great because there's value to you. More content. If they have an advertorial, they're probably going to share it to their page. It's going to drive traffic, makes the value of ads higher. Same for featured events, and the quick giveaway gives you a lot of boost. So these are things that you can always sort of sweeten the pot with if you need to, and you really want to be there because you get value from it. And then, of course, the premium listing. Now, I'm seeing a few questions pop through, so let me take a look here. We have these campaigns in some sort of document. Yep, we do have at least some PowerPoint documents that we can distribute. Obviously, for all of you, you're going to have different numbers, and you probably would going to want to brand it. But to give you an idea of where to start, you can absolutely use these sorts of things. And our rate card, it uses a little bit different language, but it's the same basic layout, so you can adapt it however you'd like. And so the next is sort of introductory. So we want to have something that everyone can afford, and that is a snapshot ad. That is a basic featured event or a premium directory listing. Clearly, you're not stuck in these three buckets. But what I try to do is to give thresholds that you can put out there. Now, a funny thing has happened. I've heard a lot when publishers tell me, oh, my advertisers, they don't have any more money to spend. Well, there's a couple interesting things with that. The first is, I think when publishers say that, there's a bit of ego at play, because they're suggesting that my advertisers are either spending all of their money with me or are telling me the truth when they say that they're tapped out. When in reality, if somebody finds something that they view valuable, they will find the money. They just don't want to spend more on what they're already getting from you. So it's important to really give them the opportunity here. And if they buy an ad campaign from you, they're not doing you a favor, you're doing them a favor. And that's what we want you to really feel convicted about, is that this is your opportunity to help them get more from your audience. So as we continue along, social promotions are more a la carte. You'll definitely give them discounts if they're a recurring customer, but they are a la carte. We have the weekly, the half month, and the monthly variety, and you can see our target prices for our average publishers. A weekly 7 to 10 days, we suggest you sell for around $400. Half month about $750, and monthly around $1,500 or up, depending on if there's a print component and how long it'll really run for. Keep in mind, if we run the campaign for you, there's a cost, and you will take some of those monies and put them towards Facebook ads in any case. Sponsored content. So in addition to your standard sponsored content advertorial stuff, there's other options like guides. You might do a Parks and Rec guide, and you sponsor by a local sporting goods store. They can be there. They can be prominent. They're going to charge probably $300 to $700 for a 6-month sponsorship. And at the end of 6 months, they can renew, or you can replace them, and you don't really have to create new content, which is fantastic. You can do an article series. The SPCA, they're going to write a weekly article for you, maybe adoptable pets. And a local pet store company is going to come and pay you to be associated with that, to have their logo and so forth, and be associated with that column. This is a bit of a range. There is a correlation to things like how often will the series appear, weekly, monthly, etc. How much traffic do you have? How do you plan to promote it? Generally speaking, I like the $100 to $150 price range. Things that you don't see here are things like the site modal, that overlay that comes up on your page that you can set up. We use it a lot with social promotions, but if it's going to be used in an a la carte way as an ad, I would say $125 a week is a good starting point, because everyone who visits your site will see it that one time. And finally, if you do have a print component, having a print add-on third or a six-page article, or ad next to an article is a good way to drive traffic online and add more value. So let's now look at some specific industries. This is going to get into some more advanced concepts. Now, the reason we break this out into standard campaigns versus industry specific is that you can sell so much. And if you present all of this to an advertiser, they're going to just glaze over like you're probably doing a little bit right now and not be able to make a decision. And so what I'm presenting to you is your menu. How big is your menu? And what your job is when you go in is to understand their needs, to assess what their wants would be, and to pick from the menu to help solve that problem. So if you have an event venue, perhaps an actual venue, perhaps it's a restaurant or a theater, you're going to mix, let's say, a sidebar ad or a wide skyscraper. Maybe the skyscraper shows up on the calendar with 4 basic featured events, meaning the one-click upgrade, and then a couple event previews and 1 event recap article. These are a form of sponsored articles, very much tied to demonstrating that their venue or location is fantastic, and they will be heavily promoted in email and on Facebook. So there's a premium sort of subscription here of $3.99 a month. Obviously, if you're entertainment oriented, this is fantastic. If you don't do a lot with entertainment yet, you might want to do a lower price to get these folks going. Now, let's look at day spas and salons. These are great because their products are incredibly desirable, and there's a lot of them out there. So combining, let's say, an inline ad or a snapshot ad with some fun advertorials, you know, what are the new styles or trends or products? They could review products. And even recent makeovers that they've done. So they do a before and after picture of a bride or a prom, you know, picture, or just someone who came in and wanted to freshen up their look. All of these things are fantastic. They demonstrate a lot of value for the salon or spa sponsor, but also they're interesting. Your audience would actually care about this stuff, which is nice. And then you give them a featured event if they happen to do events, or a quick giveaway, you know, basically a discount or some product or something that you can tie in. So I'm a big fan of the day spa and salon package. I think it's right in that sweet spot where it's a lot of value and it's still nice income for you. Likewise, restaurants and retailers, they tend to have a little bit less money, so we shrink this a bit. You pick an ad for them, an advertorial, which could very well be their weekly or current specials. You know, what's in season? Do they have a new source for vegetables that they want to talk about, or whatever? You know, especially for healthier restaurants and those that are sort of more locally grown, a lot of great things to cover there. If there are other sorts of restaurants, maybe they do have some events, but they're not a full-on venue, they can talk about some of the music acts or whatnot coming. And so there's a lot that you can tie in there. Again, you'll see a featured event or a quick giveaway. All of those items, again, deliver value and reach for you. And then we get to the realtors, insurance, financial services. These are the businesses that are sort of the backbone of local, but also boring, right? How many people are excited to read an update from their insurance salesperson or provider or whatnot? Not that many. So for them, it is about top of mind. It's about demonstrating trust, values, alignment, and so forth. And that's why things like the advertorial or Ask the Expert are important. That's why standing out. I mean, how do you pick a financial services provider other than asking your friends? I don't know. What questions would you ask them? What expertise they need to bring to the table? All of those things. And so these sorts of campaigns will help them really differentiate. And this is where things that are a little unique, like the sponsored reader poll or a social media poll, could be interesting. You know, what's your favorite part of living here? What's your favorite local getaway? These sorts of polls that you can ask that are really useful for you because that information can be used in other ways, but it shows that they're aligned with the community. They care about the community. And that's what they're trying to build their brand. And finally, home services. Obviously, there's a lot of different industries, from plumbers to electricians, you name it. We just moved, so we're dealing with many of them in the new house. But they need to build their brand, and they also want to differentiate. How do you pick an electrician? I don't know. Do you look at their hands and see if they've been electrocuted lately? I don't know if there's a way to tell, but having them demonstrate proficiency by showing, you know, some challenging local projects, or maybe a DIY opportunity that they can teach you how to do, and then of course fix it when you screw it up or whatever, right? Or maybe even just being a guide sponsor is a great way for them to demonstrate that they have a unique set of values and perspective that is interesting. The point here is you want to get really creative about solving their problems. And if you are out and you're talking to someone and they express a need or a want or a pain point, and you feel like, I just don't know what the right solution is, or I don't know that we can help with that, I really want to challenge you. Write it down. Let them know that you want to go do some research, that you want to think about it, that you want to talk with your partners Locable, and come to us. Tell us a little bit about their business. Tell us about what they're trying to accomplish, and we'll get creative with you. We'll put together something very special for them that only you can provide, because it's your audience combined with execution that matters. Now, these are obviously examples. Again, I don't want you to get overly fixated because there is flexibility, but people like to have something spoon-fed to them. So create your own and do this before you go meet with folks. I would suggest that all of these would include a premium directory listing. If there are articles or events or whatever, you're going to share those to your Facebook page. You're going to include them on emails as it makes sense to do. And really, anyone who is going to run a social promotion, which is most local businesses should run a social promotion, should do it every 3 to 6 months. If it's a restaurant, they might do it as there's a major change in available food, especially local level. Day spas or salons or retailers might be as seasons change and clothing styles change, they're going to do a new promotion. Others might do something less frequent, and they might want to participate in a much larger promotion, like back to school, or January 1st weight loss promotion makeover sort of thing. Those are bigger. A lot of these businesses could participate in a few weekly promotions and a big monthly each year to stay very much connected with your audience. Now, I'm talking about a lot of stuff. I'm trying to talk fast to keep from running too long on this particular call, but please do post any questions that you have about how we came to these numbers, or if you don't understand sort of how the math works to get here. I'm happy to spend a little bit of time on it, or whatever questions that you might have. I'm going to keep moving along, but please do post your questions. Now, as you may or may not be typing, I'm going to talk about math. Math is fun for me, especially when it's related to revenue. So there's this big desire to go out and immediately boil the ocean. Now, if you're a new website with no print or whatnot, obviously making money is important, and we do have a quick start to get you to $3,000 a month, which we can talk about. But for the purpose of this call, I want to talk about consistency. So if you go out and you sell one campaign every 10 days, 3 a month, less than 1 a week, and your average campaign price is just $75. Remember, I just went through all these campaigns. How many of those were less than $75? So 75 is a good number for this math problem. So you're going to have 3 a month. Over the course of 24 months or 2 years, about 75 businesses spending $75 a month. Keep in mind, you need to sign people to recurring billing. You need to sign them to long-term contracts. And they shouldn't have a problem with it, because unless they plan on going out of business, they're going to need to promote their business. And the ads and so forth can change, but the fact that they're going to be there is great. And by the way, keep in mind, when you sell them a long-term contract, you're locking them in at the rate for today. If you do the things we talk about to grow your audience, to grow your engagement, if you run social promotions alone, you're going to get bigger Facebook distribution, more email opt-ins, which means your traffic will grow. The value of that campaign will be higher in 6 months than it is today, but they're locked in. So they get a great deal from that. Now, I want you to target early on 1 to 2 weekly social promotions a month. So every other month you'll have every other week you'll have a promotion running. And initially you might start as low as $250, but over time you'll grow to $500, and depending on sort of your current traffic and revenue and Facebook fan base and so forth, will dictate where you start. But let's say you just started at $250 and you grew to $500. Well, at the end of 24 months, you'd be doing about $1,000 a month in these weeklies. And you got your email newsletter. Well, right now you're going to be sending maybe a weekly one and a mixed in monthly, just sort of here's something big that happened. Over time, the number of newsletters that you send will go up as you have more content. The number of emails that you send to will go up. And so a sponsorship will increase in value. So ultimately, you'll say you have 8 people sponsoring emails for $175 each. Now, keep in mind, for the purpose of this slide and going through the math here, I'm breaking these out into like a la carte pieces, but you would not go to a business and sell them an email sponsorship. You would sell them a campaign that includes sponsoring an email. And so the numbers you see here are for the relative value of that. So at month 24, you'd be looking at about $8,000 a month in revenue. Or if you never grew again, that means about $96,000 a year in revenue. Now, because the cost of digital is so low, you're about $90,000 a year in profit. Now, I'm excluding commissions. Many of you sell your own ads, so that's a moot point. If you don't, then obviously that will need to be accounted for. But the point here is slow and steady turns into real money. And it doesn't even include things like premium placements. Again, think back to those campaigns. What happens if you sell 3 or 4 venues on $400 a month? Well, that all ratchets up. It doesn't include monthly sponsorships, but surely you should run some monthly campaigns throughout the year, $1,500 up to, say, $5,000 per as you grow. It does include native advertising and advertorials, but at the $75 price point, it sort of doesn't. And it definitely does not include any impact revenue, directory, all the stuff that we're building that's a recurring revenue stream for you. So there's a lot of upside even to this, not to mention there's a lot of businesses who will want to participate. So be encouraged. There's a lot of revenue opportunity for you. There's a lot of need to provide a solution to local businesses, and you've got a lot to offer. The key is for you to come to a firm understanding of the basics so that you feel really comfortable about the value you can deliver. And what's fantastic about this is even if you don't have a ton of traffic or Facebook following or whatever, the approach that we bring will help change that. And selling stuff will help change that. Social promotions help change that. Now, we talked about this in the video that we put together, and we're talking about it now. Make your life easy. We recommend FreshBooks for your basic accounting and invoicing, and they tie in nicely to services like Stripe for credit card billing. You should not be doing collections. You should not be sending invoices and expecting a check. Set people up, set up on recurring billing. It's worth the fees, because how many checks do you not have to collect to make up for all of this? So seriously, do it. It's high value. Erica posted a question. I'm going to take a look. Can we see a sample of an ad in an e-newsletter and actually an example of each of these packages? So let me see if I can think of a good place to find a newsletter ad for a moment. While I'm sort of trying to find that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second to find that. But tell me more about what you mean about an example of each of these packages.
Hey, Brian.
Yes.
I posted a link of an example newsletter in the chat pane for everyone.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. So I will pull this up. Okay, so this is Mansfield Magazine. We manage their presence for them as part of the Publisher Concierge. This is the email newsletter that we send out regularly. I won't do the full anatomy of the newsletter at the moment, but as you scroll down, you can see there's a number of sponsorships. Baylor is mixed in, Massage Envy, and I think there's another one, yeah, an ad here at the bottom. Now, these are all using basically the inline ad, and that's fine. But you could also do things like use a skyscraper. Notice how it would fit under this left section here. You could even do a bigger ad in the main area, although I'm not a big fan of that. But there's a lot of options here to mix it in. And depending on the time of year, we're going into fall now, or in the spring, you might have an HVAC business who says, prepare for winter, get your furnace checked, that sort of thing. That might be an actual separate email, but this is specifically referring to sponsoring content emails. I'm going to pull up a couple things that Ryan shared here. Oh, great. One step ahead of me. So there's the sidebar, sponsorship ad mixed in. Very nice. So we're happy to help you set up your emails. We definitely recommend MailChimp, which makes setting up the basic design and updating it pretty darn easy. If we're publisher concierge, as we are for you, Erica, we'll actually be the ones populating the email for you. If it's a publisher who is a member but not working with us as a concierge, they'll be the ones who update the content sort of within the template themselves. As for
Hey, Brian, there's another link in there. The second link that I sent you is an example of a advertorial that you might want to share.
Yeah, so Mansfield long ago sold this to Kuman, the learning center, school, whatever it is. And so this is an article about, how to do your best, but don't stress your kids out, basically. Don't give them a complex. And so there's different quotes from people like Walt Disney and Michael Jordan, and then it's brought to you by Kuman of Mansfield. So this is very much an educational piece that demonstrates the sorts of values that they're about. If you want to look at a featured event and an upcoming featured article, this is a sponsored article about a festival. Now this breaks my 12-month recurring rule because this festival is annual, so they don't need to promote it all year round. But in this case, this was a paid piece. It was tied to these featured events that are in the calendar. So these are the one-click upgrades plus step 2, which is the preview article. And then we, of course, link out to the various days associated with it. And there's a little information about what to expect and a video that they had. We did not produce the video. That was a video they had on YouTube that we added. And then we, of course, share this via email and into Facebook and so forth. Hope that helps you get an idea of it, Erica. Obviously, your style and tone of content will be unique on a case-by-case basis, but there's a lot of options here. A publisher who does a lot of really nice sponsorships is South Lake Style. They have a very tight-knit community, especially around their high school football team, which is always ranked nationally. And so they regularly do recaps of last week's game and highlight it in unique ways. So just a moment. Sorry about that. Working from home as our internet is continually up and down at the office with that construction. So they do a lot of things where they might be highlighting, player of the game from last week, and then they have sponsors who sponsor that. So let's take a look and see if they've got one here. Well, doesn't look like I'm giving you a very good example. Oh, here we go. Player of the week. It's an article. It obviously pulls from the local pride of this football team. And of course, there's a very clear sponsor associated. He wants to be the guy that you think of for insurance if you've got a kid who goes to the school or an athlete or whatever. And then for these players, hey, what a great way to be recognized. So a lot of opportunities for sponsorships and for driving traffic while also delivering a lot of value and so forth. Another question for you, what does a social promotion look like on Facebook? That is a great question, and I'm trying to think of the best way to show it to you.
You can pull up Idaho Falls. They have all the old contests still on their page.
Yeah, so Idaho Falls is in a lot with social promotions. I hesitated as I was thinking about this because what I'm about to show you is where the contest is run, but not the limitation of how it's promoted. So they just had this Go Card Crazy contest. This was an actual contest. It was voting based as opposed to just enter for your chance to win. It just concluded, but you can see the graphic designs that we did on behalf of Idaho Falls, and then people would post, a car and get people to vote. These, I think, came in at the last minute before the voting closed. But people were literally incentivized to post and then share with their friends. And you can see there's a ton of comments. Keep in mind, when someone comments here, you, and of course, Teton Toyota, because they were the sponsor, is what people see in their newsfeed. So this is where people go, but this is not the extent of the promotion. So there was an ad on Idaho Falls. There was a modal. There was an email that went out, and there was a bunch of posts on Facebook that Ryan scheduled and ran for them. So as you can see, as I scroll through here, there's different things that we use to promote this, and we do regularly also take some of those proceeds that I mentioned, and we pay to reach more people. This was not boosted, reached a fair amount of people. Ryan did a lot of great stuff where you would regularly do updates on who's in the lead, so it's more, more exposure for those people. Of course, Michael, I'm sure, hit the like button when he saw this because, hey, look at, I'm winning. Everybody keep voting for me, that sort of thing. And Teton Toyota, hey, is that valuable for me to reach out to, 5,000 people on this one post? You better believe it. So there was a series of posts, a series of graphics, a number of ways that we promoted this. This reached 6,100 people, and just a lot of promotion that goes into it. So it's hard to convey in about 5 seconds, but hopefully you can see there's a lot that's going on. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, and if I can just jump in to kind of elaborate on what Brian's saying here, I'm going to share some of the final statistics based on where we promoted it. So, for example, we had just over 6,500 view the contest page, which was that page we were just looking at a few minutes ago. There were over 11,000 page views on the website during this contest. I don't have a specific number of emails that were sent out, but I know at least one went out, and they have somewhere north of 5,000 people on their email list. So you can see that, as we're going through this, we're providing, or I should say Idaho Falls is providing tremendous value to their advertisers here. There's over 60,000 impressions on Facebook, including 205 shares. Idaho Falls themselves gained 113 new likes during the promotion. So you can see that there's no one single channel that we're promoting this in. It was a multi-channel campaign, meaning we promoted it on their website, we promoted it on Facebook through email. And I know in this case, I believe there's actually some radio ads that were run, obviously outside of what we do with publishers, but something that Idaho Falls does from time to time as well. So it's not just limited to print and web. There's other options as well.
Those are great stats. And again, you don't sell stats because people don't really fully get it, but it demonstrates value. And so for weeklies, we expect to reach 10 to 15,000 people in some capacity through the channels that we promote. And for the monthlies, and that one was not quite to 100,000 impressions, but it was working on it. And I think it appeared in print too. I can't recall exactly, but it just creates a lot of value, and obviously that's good. And everyone loves to see the buzz that's going on. And I want you to also think about how many people saw that impression on Facebook, on email, on something, and run a business and thought, boy, this would be cool if they could do this for my business. So these generate new leads from people that you may not actually even have a relationship with yet, simply because they're on Facebook and they see it. So social promotions, again, are something we really love.
Yeah. So there's a question from Erica. Was this also promoted on Toyota's Facebook site? And the answer to that is not directly. Of course, we asked them to share that. They may have. I don't know. I didn't actually look, to be honest with you. But there are little tricks that you can do to kind of get your stuff to show up on their page, like referencing them when you post an article on Idaho Falls. So I'll say brought to you by @Teton Toyota. And then it will start to show up in their fans' news feeds. So there's things like that we do. We obviously, every time we run a promotion, we recommend that the business post about it, but that doesn't always happen. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. As you can see, Brian's trying to scan through pretty quickly here to see if we can find one.
Yeah, it's definitely in their best interest, and we always provide them with some stock material that they can use, but it looks like they may not have chosen to use it, which is really unfortunate. It's a missed opportunity for them. And in the past, when we've had sponsors that do promote it, their fans already love them. So when they see that they're doing something that's like giving back and perceived to be a goodwill gesture, it goes even more viral. And that's good for you as the publisher, but it's also just obviously great for keep on Toyota. So in any case, it doesn't look like they did, but they should have and they could have. As far as the Allstate ad in the article, technically, that wasn't an ad. It was an image that was inserted. Obviously, it was an ad in terms of the design, but that was just embedded in an article, so that didn't run through the ad server. We are just about done with the ad server upgrade, and one of the new things that we're having is a sponsorship ad. And so you'll be able to target specific ads at specific content or pages in a sponsorship capacity. I call it a sponsorship ad just to answer your second question, but that's not exactly set in stone. All right. Any other questions before we wrap up for today? Well, next week we're going to talk about handling some objections and common questions. So if you've had any questions you hadn't felt comfortable with, or you have concerns as you go out, we want you to send those to us so that we can pull them together, that we can help you address them, and ideally show you some good examples. If you haven't already watched our audience development video, and you have a print publication in particular, spend the 20 minutes. It'll walk you through leveraging print. It'll walk you through sending people online and using our in this issue approach. Now, this is clearly good for driving traffic and engagement, but when you go to sell, that's the story you need to tell. Very few of you have a ton of traffic. So even if people knew what that traffic number meant, you don't have it. So what you need to be able to share is the things that you are doing today that's going to affect traffic tomorrow. And tell this story in a way that people can be excited about it. We have 20,000 people who see our print publication. They're engaged, and we give them ways to get more content online, more galleries, more video, more etc. When you show it to them and they flip through and they see that, it connects the dots in their minds. Say, I see, I want to be in print because I want to reach your readers. I want to be online because I want to reach your readers. So I need to be both places. So please do take a look at that. If you need the link, we can provide it. It's on our site, locable.com. How do we utilize hashtags in Twitter? We don't use Twitter a whole lot. For local purposes, Facebook is the preferred source, and because most of our publishers run very lean, it's about getting the biggest bang for your buck, so Facebook is it. Some of our publishers do use Twitter, whether it's specific markets that they're in or they personally are bigger Twitter users. There is a set of practices, but we don't have a sort of set practice for hashtags on Twitter. Is this presentation recorded? It is recorded. Thank you. And it will be loaded to our Playbook here shortly. Ryan's been doing a great job of upgrading Locable's corporate site. We're adding lots of new resources to the Playbook, and that also means these things are going up. So just to give you a preview of this, if you are trying to navigate our site and find resources, I recommend that you start with the Try and Learn option at the upper right-hand corner. So when you hit locable.com, there's Playbook and there's Resource Library. Obviously, you're on the call, so you don't need the program overview. But if you start at the Playbook, you're going to get a preview. Now, we are sort of under development in terms of the content, and we're developing content for businesses and even locals to play their part in building community. But if you click View All on the publisher links, then you'll come in here and you'll see we've got a lot of work to do to make this all live, but there's a couple videos. There's pricing and packages, which is a more concise version of what we covered today, and there's the audience development webinar. Both of those can be viewed, and we've got a couple more that we're working on. Now, our blog, of course, is a great resource, but if you go to the resource library, you can see our pricing and packages, office hour information. You can see the print publisher's checklist for posts online, and you can even filter based on things like, let's look at office hours. And so you can scroll through here. We still have to update topics of each one, but you'll be able to see those. If you want to see social promotions, you can come in here and say, I want to download the Power of a Social Promotion case study, or maybe some ideas for September. You can download those. And then, of course, the blog, which is a mix of shorter topics and so forth. So definitely take a look at those things. And if there's a topic that you need us to cover, you want to feel better about fill in the blank. You're getting asked about fill in the blank. Bring it to our attention. We want to cover pertinent topics on these office hours, so definitely let us know. All right, with that, I think we're going to stop the recording. This will probably be our longest office hour, actually an hour. But if you have any additional questions, post them and we'll answer them before we sign off.